What is going on, YouTube? So coming back today with my next NBA draft scouting report. So today I am doing Skal Labissiere. Yesterday I did, I believe it was Jakob Poeltl. So a little bit of background information about Skal. He is a 6'11", 225 pound freshman out of Kentucky. He can play at the 4 or the 5. Pretty sure he was predominantly power forward, and he has a 7'2" wingspan. So get into some of his strengths. So first one is he's got great size and wingspan for a 4, which he probably will end up playing in the NBA. Having a 6'11", maybe a 7-footer, I think it depends on where he measures out, might actually still be able to grow another inch. He's only 19 years old. With a 7'2" wingspan is elite size at that position. And if he develops the way that he was supposed to coming out of high school as the number 2 recruit in this class, 5-star recruit coming into Kentucky, then could be a steal for some team in, I'd say, the late lottery, maybe mid to late first round as a whole. So second strength is his athleticism. So he's got a good vertical. I believe it's about 41 inches. I need to check that out, what that actually is. But he runs the floor extremely well for 6'11", maybe a 7-footer. And yeah, about 39 inch vertical. But you take that with a grain of salt because of the way he was not able to develop at Kentucky, really. So move on to his third strength, which is he's a potentially great post scorer. So he came into college being hyped up as one of the better inside scorers, having good touch, having a good jumper, and just being an overall versatile scorer, whether he was back to the basket or face up. So that, again, you got to take into the word potentially, because he just didn't show out that well in college. I mean, you're looking at his averages for the number 2 recruit overall coming in. He averaged 6.6 points per game, 3.1 rebounds, and 0.3 assists. Shot about 52% and only got to play about 15 minutes a game. The early part of the season was extremely rough for him. So, again, it got a little bit better as the year went along. He had a big game against LSU at the end of the year, and then also against Stony Brook in the NCAA tournament. He just was really limited on minutes, just rarely got to play over 25 minutes, let alone sometimes not even 20. Don't really know I personally don't know what was really going on. I just don't think he showed the promise that Cal wanted him to. I don't think Calipari was the best developmental coach for him either. But anyway, move into fourth strength, which his defense did develop. It came along at the end of the year pretty well. Something that just didn't seem like it was there during the middle part of the season. At the beginning of the year, he was blocking, sometimes 4 shots per game, and then the middle of the season rolled around into sometimes didn't even get a single block, playing 20 minutes, which is one of his calling cards, being a decent rim protector. And like I said, big game against LSU, 6 blocks, I believe 9 rebounds, and 18 points. So that's the type of player that a lot of people were expecting him to be in college. Should be a good rebounder, but a lot of times just didn't really fit that role at Kentucky. So get into some of his weaknesses. First one is it was just a disappointing freshman year. You look at his averages, you look at his minutes, and for the number 2 recruit coming into college this year, you expected a lot better. Now, it's not that he had such a disappointing freshman year that you got to knock him out of the first round. He's still got that upside that a lot of teams are probably going to want to tap into. He's got more upside than I'd say half the lottery picks that are going to be taken in the top 14. So I think that's going to be interesting enough, baiting enough for one team to be able to come in and swoop him up before the end of the top 20. So second weakness is his strength. So he did put on 10 pounds since the beginning of the year for Kentucky. It's like, it's just something that's got to build up. He's 19 years old. It's something that I think will build up. He was bullied in the paint a lot this year. Just didn't look like he had the strength or the mindset a lot of times to be able to hang with a lot of the better big men in college basketball. So, third and final weakness is just his development. I mentioned this. He didn't get the minutes I think he needed. He didn't get the development I think he needed from Cal. And you can see that in just the inconsistency that he showed this year. I don't know if this was on him or if it was on Kentucky. I heard a lot. I mean, you hear a lot of Kentucky fans just say it's on different things. A lot of people just think he was overrated. A lot of people just think he has a weak mindset. A lot of people think it was on Cal or Kentucky or just having a weak team. I don't know. I think it was a little bit on both sides. I mean, when he did play, he didn't play fantastic. I mean, there was a stretch run of the year where he was shooting like 38, 39% when shooting for mostly inside. Now, he didn't get much of a chance to log his free throw shooting ability. He did not get to the line much at all. About a little bit less than 2 times per game. Still shot around 66, 67% from the line, which is pretty good. And, I mean, you got to look at this guy's blocks. I mean, 1.6 blocks per game. But I think the most concerning part about his stats is 3 personal fouls per game while playing only about 15 or 16 minutes per game. The foul trouble could have been another reason with limited minutes. Kentucky did not have a very deep rotation in the front court. But, again, the development just, it didn't happen like you expected it to. The beginning of the season, he looked like he'd be fine. There were a few big games he had at the beginning of the year. And then he started moving along, and he started getting less and less minutes. And just the blocks, the rebounds, the points, the field goal percentage, they all started to drop. All right, so that does it for his strengths and weaknesses. So get into just where I think he projects in the NBA. Now, you go anyway with this. Now, when I'm thinking about, for me, I think it depends on what situation he ends up in the NBA. This is going to have to be a guy that is thrown into a pretty deep front court rotation with a good coach. I know one of the more common comparisons for him is LaMarcus Aldridge, which I do like. I think it's a good comparison. Might be a little bit more of a shot blocker than Aldridge, but I mean, he does have some of the highest upside of any player in this draft. Like I said, number 2 recruit coming into college, and when you looked at mock drafts at the beginning of the year, a lot of time he was the number 2 overall pick. Some people were talking about him even climbing up to being the number 1 overall pick. So the last NBA Draft.net mock draft had him going at 13 to the Phoenix Suns, and again, I mentioned this last night when I was talking about Pirtle. To the Suns, I think it would be a good fit for a guy like Pirtle, who is already developed pretty well, who already pretty much fits an NBA role. Now, Labissiere is the opposite. I don't think that he would fit in well to his Suns front court right now. That's extremely thin. There's a couple of fits that I like for him in the later lottery, most notably being the Magic, Jazz, and Bulls, because all 3 teams, if the Bulls do decide to hang on to Pau Gasol, he'd have a guy to develop under in Chicago. He'd have a lot of talent around him. He'd be able to fit into a front court rotation where I think he'd be able to thrive. You talk about the Jazz already having Derek Favors, Rudy Gobert. He'd be able to learn from a guy like Gobert, who honestly wasn't a big name coming into the draft. 2013? And he'd be able to move into a front court rotation that, like I said, is extremely talented and has a little bit of everything. Rudy Gobert's a great shot blocker, one of the best in the NBA. Derek Favors is a good player down low. He's a good rebounder, and he's a decent back-to-the-basket scorer. He is very strong. And you talk about the Magic, you got one of the better big men in the NBA with Nikola Vucevic, one of the better inside scorers and one of the better rebounders for sure. And he'd be going to a young team with Oladipo, with Elfrid Payton, with Vucevic that I think will come along given another year or two. A lot of people are waiting for the Magic to do something, but it's been like adding 2 wins per year. And I think you add a guy like Labissiere that could develop in a good situation with a young team. That'd be another good fit for him. Now, stats are hard to project just because you don't know where he's going to end up. I think you're talking about a guy that's probably going to be averaging like 4 and 2 his rookie year. I don't think that his rookie year is going to be a time where he comes along huge. Like I said, I think this is more of a project, a guy that especially showing his struggles in college, you just got to be patient with. So that pretty much does it for this video. Tomorrow I will be coming back with Firkin Korkmaz, so going international again. And then after that, looks like Denzel Valentine. So, done with an interesting one today. But like I said, if you have not seen any of my previous videos, if you want to go check out yesterday's video, that will be in the outro. That was Jakob Poeltl, and then the link to the entire playlist will be in the description below. So that's pretty much it. It's just some background information about Poeltl. He is a 7'1", I believe 240-pound center out of Vienna, Austria. Played at Utah. He's got a 7'1" wingspan. He was a sophomore before declaring for the NBA draft this year. And I do believe he signed